Let's just go there. You read the title. You know why we're here. This question, how much long penis a woman can take, gets whispered, joked about, Googled in the middle of the night, and twisted into all kinds of insecurity for men and women. So let's drop the embarrassment. Stop pretending it's not something people wonder about, and actually talk about it like adults. Because under that very blunt, very physical question is a much more interesting one. What actually matters when it comes to sexual connection? And are we even asking the right questions? First, yes, there are physical facts. The vaginal canal, on average, is between 3 to 7 inches deep, and it can stretch when aroused. It's made to be flexible. It expands during sex. It expands during childbirth. So in a very literal sense, yes, a woman's body can accommodate something long. That's biology, but just because something can go there doesn't mean it feels good, doesn't mean it should, and doesn't mean it's going to create a better sexual experience. That's the trap so many people fall into. We've been trained to think bigger is better, like this is a performance or a competition, and I've got news for you, it's not, because pleasure isn't about size, it's about presence, it's about safety. It's about being relaxed and open and excited. It's about trust. Your body knows what it wants, and it will tell you when it's too much, when it's not enough, and when it's just right. The question isn't how much can she take. It's, is this even enjoyable? Are we connected? Are we communicating? Is this a two-way street, or is someone just trying to prove something? And let's get real. So many people are walking around thinking they're not enough, or they're too much, or they need to impress or satisfy some imagined standard that doesn't even exist. Stop, sex isn't a porn clip. It's not a measuring contest. It's not about hitting some arbitrary number of inches. It's about connection. It's about what feels good for you and your partner, and that means communicating, listening, slowing down, and letting go of all the dumb pressure we pile onto ourselves. And here's something else nobody talks about enough. Size anxiety is real on both sides. Men worry they're too small. Women worry they're not tight enough or deep enough or whatever enough, and all of that is noise. You don't need to take anything or be anything to be worthy of intimacy and pleasure. You need honesty, you need comfort, and you need to know that your body as it is not broken, wrong, or unworthy. So if you're asking, how much can a woman take? Stop and ask something better. How can we make this amazing for both of us? That's where the real power is. That's where the real magic happens. The number doesn't matter. What matters is trust. What matters is knowing your body. What matters is that you're showing up for yourself and for your partner with curiosity instead of judgment, with patience instead of pressure. You're not here to perform, you're here to feel, to connect, to explore. That's where the good stuff lives. Not in size, but in the space between you and another human being. So the real answer, it depends. It depends on the person. It depends on the moment. It depends on the connection. And when you're in tune with all of that, the question of how much becomes irrelevant, because you'll already know you're enough, just as you are. Size doesn't determine pleasure. Connection does. That statement might seem simple, maybe even obvious, but it flies in the face of decades of cultural messaging, insecurity, and misinformation. From movies to magazines to conversations in locker rooms and friend circles, we've been conditioned to believe that the physical aspect of sex, specifically penis size, is the main factor in determining satisfaction, particularly for women. This belief is not only misleading, but it's also damaging. It shifts the focus away from what truly matters in intimacy and puts unnecessary pressure on both partners, especially men who grow up equating their worth or sexual competence with how they measure up physically. The truth is that emotional and physical connection plays a far more significant role in sexual satisfaction than size ever could. When two people are emotionally connected, when there's trust, safety, and mutual respect, that creates the foundation for open, honest, and deeply satisfying intimacy. It's not about what your body looks like or how big a specific body part is. It's about how you make each other feel. Are you present? Are you listening? Are you responding to your partner's cues? These are the real metrics of sexual chemistry and fulfillment. When people focus too much on size, they tend to overlook the importance of things like foreplay, communication, and emotional presence. They start to treat sex like a performance instead of an experience. But no one has ever felt deeply loved, desired, or fulfilled because someone measured up to a number. They feel it because someone took the time to understand them, to engage with them, to make them feel seen and safe and wanted. A large part of intimacy lives in the subtleties, the looks, the words, the energy, the attunement, and none of that can be measured in inches. Studies consistently show that most women don't consider size a major factor in sexual satisfaction. Instead, they value emotional closeness, affectionate touch, and attentive partners who care about their pleasure. The parts of the body most responsible for female pleasure, like the clitoris, aren't even inside the vaginal canal. This means penetration alone, regardless of size, is not the sole path to fulfillment. Yet the myth persists because it's easier to market a product, sell a fantasy, or stroke an ego than it is to encourage people to slow down and actually connect. Another reason size gets so much attention is because we live in a culture that avoids real conversations about sex. It's more comfortable to make jokes about big size or fantasies than to talk honestly about vulnerability, desires, fears, and what we actually want in bed. When people lack the tools or the confidence to communicate openly with a partner, they fall back on performance-based metrics. It becomes all about doing, proving, achieving, rather than simply being and feeling. And when sex becomes a performance, it loses its authenticity. It becomes mechanical instead of meaningful. For people who do feel insecure about size, whether they believe they're too small or even too big, there's a huge opportunity to shift the focus. Instead of wondering whether they measure up, they can focus on showing up. Being attentive, asking questions, being willing to learn, laugh, and explore with a partner will go infinitely further than stressing over physical traits you were born with. Most people don't remember specific positions or stats about a sexual experience. They remember how they felt. Did they feel safe, desired, understood? That's what sticks. Sex is one of the most vulnerable human things we do, and yet it's surrounded by unrealistic expectations and unnecessary shame. Taking the focus off size and putting it onto connection changes everything. It gives both people room to be authentic instead of performative. It creates space for real pleasure rather than pressure. It opens up the kind of honest conversations that lead to greater intimacy. When you feel emotionally and energetically in tune with your partner, your body naturally responds, tension melts, inhibitions drop, trust grows, and when trust is present, pleasure follows. When pleasure is the goal, not ego or achievement, sex becomes more than physical. It becomes transformative, and that kind of experience has nothing to do with size. The vagina is adaptable, but comfort matters more than capacity. One of the biggest misconceptions around female anatomy is the idea that it's just a passive space that can be measured by how much it can take. This view reduces a complex, responsive, and powerful part of the body into something mechanical and oversimplified. The truth is that the vagina isn't just a hole. It's a dynamic, muscular structure that changes depending on arousal, hormones, emotional state, and context. It can expand and contract. It can accommodate a variety of sizes. It can even deliver a baby. But just because it can stretch doesn't mean that more is better or that bigger equals more pleasure. That's where people get it wrong, because they focus so much on what the body can do that they forget to ask what actually feels good for the person inside that body. During arousal, the vagina becomes more elastic. Blood flow increases, lubrication is produced, and the muscles relax. This is why foreplay and emotional connection are so important. When a woman feels safe, turned on, and respected, her body naturally prepares itself. But if she feels pressured, rushed, or disconnected, the opposite happens. Tension builds, lubrication decreases, and the entire experience can become uncomfortable or even painful. So, while the body may have the physical ability to stretch or take in a certain size, that doesn't automatically translate into pleasure. It only works when the person is ready, relaxed, and wanting it. The body responds to the mind, and comfort comes from the intersection of emotional and physical readiness. What gets lost in so many conversations about sex is that pleasure is subjective. What feels amazing for one person may feel like too much for another. Some women enjoy deep penetration, others find it uncomfortable. Some are more sensitive around the vaginal opening, others prefer internal stimulation. There is no one size fits all experience, and yet people keep chasing the myth that there is a universal answer to what women want based on physical dimensions alone. That mindset isn't just inaccurate, it's dismissive. It ignores the nuance of human experience and reduces intimacy to a math problem. The question shouldn't be how much the vagina can take, but how to create a sexual experience that feels good, safe, and connected for both people. Comfort is not a luxury in sex, it's essential. When a woman feels discomfort, she disconnects from the moment. Her body tenses, her mind drifts, and she stops enjoying herself. If that happens often enough, she may start to associate sex with anxiety, pressure, or even fear. That's why pushing past her limits, even unintentionally, can be so damaging. Listening to her body matters, going slow matters, asking matters, responding to nonverbal cues matters. These are the things that create an environment where the body can relax and open up naturally. Without that, you're not building intimacy, you're breaking it. Another piece of this conversation that's often overlooked is that adaptability doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Yes, the vagina is designed to accommodate, but not every woman experiences the same level of elasticity or comfort. Factors like age, childbirth, hormone levels, past trauma, and even stress levels all impact how the body responds during sex. Someone who's had a negative experience in the past may be physically capable of taking penetration, but emotionally resistant to it. Someone else may find certain positions or angles painful despite being aroused. That's not failure, it's information. It's a signal to slow down, adjust, communicate, and take care of each other. Penetration is often treated like the main event in sex, but that's a narrow and outdated view. There are many other ways to experience pleasure, intimacy, and connection that have nothing to do with how deep or how far or how much. Focusing on comfort over capacity opens the door to more exploration, more communication, and more fulfillment. It removes pressure and invites curiosity. It also allows people to be more present, to be in their bodies, and to feel instead of perform. That's what makes sex meaningful, not some anatomical benchmark, but the experience of being fully seen, heard, and respected. Society puts so much emphasis on physical compatibility that it forgets about emotional compatibility. It's not about what someone's body can handle, it's about what someone wants to feel, and often that's intimacy, trust, attention, and care, not just deep penetration. When comfort becomes the priority, connection becomes easier. When partners check in with each other and stay attuned, the physical part takes care of itself. The body is wise. It gives signals. It knows when something feels good and when it doesn't. Listening to that wisdom is what builds truly satisfying sexual experiences. Focus on mutual enjoyment, not measurement. This simple shift in perspective can completely transform the way people approach intimacy. For far too long, the idea of sexual satisfaction has been tangled up with physical metrics. How long, how big, how many times, how fast. And while those things can be part of the experience, they're not the defining elements. When sex becomes about checking off boxes or trying to reach a particular standard, it stops being about connection and starts being about performance. Mutual enjoyment, on the other hand, requires presence, responsiveness, and emotional awareness. It's not about one person impressing the other. It's about two people tuning in to what feels good, what feels right, and what deepens their connection. In any sexual experience, both partners bring something to the table. But when the conversation centers only on one person's needs or how well someone is performing physically, it creates an imbalance. That imbalance can make the other person feel like a passive participant rather than an equal partner in the experience. When people focus on mutual enjoyment, they stop thinking in terms of doing something to someone and start thinking in terms of doing something with someone. That shift invites more curiosity, more playfulness, and more emotional safety. When people feel safe, they're more likely to open up, to communicate what they like and what they don't. They're more likely to express desires, to explore without shame, and to give honest feedback. This kind of openness is critical to truly satisfying sex. If one partner is too focused on whether they're doing it right or whether they measure up, they're not really present. They're in their head performing a role. Mutual enjoyment comes from shared presence, where both people are attuned not just to what's happening physically, but to how the other person is responding emotionally. Sex that's based on mutual enjoyment is slower, more connected, and more creative. It's less about routines or expectations and more about discovery. It allows people to drop the scripts they think they have to follow and instead follow instinct and feedback in real time. There's no pressure to reach a particular goal or outcome because the entire experience becomes valuable, not just the climax. This kind of mindset leads to a more fulfilling and less stressful sexual dynamic. It reduces the anxiety that often comes from trying to impress and replaces it with a sense of shared play and connection. Another reason mutual enjoyment matters so much is that it acknowledges that pleasure isn't linear or predictable. What feels good one day may feel different the next. What works for one person may not work for another. Every body is different, and every experience is shaped by emotional, psychological, and relational factors. That means no two sexual experiences are exactly the same, and there's no universal formula for getting it right. Instead of trying to control or predict pleasure through performance, mutual enjoyment invites people to explore together, to adjust, to ask, and to listen. Too often, people focus on how long sex lasted, how many orgasms were achieved, or how large or skilled someone was. But those numbers say nothing about how meaningful, enjoyable, or satisfying the experience actually was. An experience where both partners laugh, connect, explore, and feel seen is far more powerful than one that checks every physical box but lacks presence or intimacy. The most memorable and fulfilling moments don't come from precision or perfection. They come from the realness, the unpredictability, and the feeling of being in sync with someone. When mutual enjoyment is the focus, both partners take responsibility for the experience. They ask questions, they give feedback, they respond to each other. They're not just trying to get through it or reach the end. They're engaged from beginning to end, emotionally and physically. That's where deep satisfaction comes from. It's not about winning or proving anything. It's about creating something together that feels good, honest, and real. In that space, people can be more authentic. They can be silly. They can make mistakes. They can ask for what they want without fear of judgment. They can experience pleasure that's richer and more nuanced than anything based on technique or size alone. When people stop measuring and start feeling, everything changes. It becomes less about comparison and more about connection. It becomes less about hitting targets and more about enjoying the moment. And in that kind of environment, intimacy has room to grow into something truly fulfilling for both people.